Okay, here we go. Gonna draw some comics. You're finding this for the first time. Jerzy Drozd, cartoonist and teaching artist, and I'm redrawing an old comic of mine called A Friendly Game. Old? How old? A couple years old. Drew it October of 20. Is it 18? 17? Did it as an Inktober challenge one year. My goal today is to try to get this done in a half hour or less. It's going to take about a half hour at least. Probably a little bit longer, my guess. What app am I using? Flip Studio Paint. I'm on a Windows tablet, kind of like a Microsoft Surface. They don't make this one anymore, so kind of a bummer because it's called the Vio Z Canvas, and I find that it's a pretty great what do they call it? Ultrabook designed for artists in the same way that Clip Studio Paint is sort of like Photoshop for cartoonists. I feel like the Vio Z Canvas was something that felt like it was really like thinking about like how are artists going to use this device. And they only made it for 1 year. Now it's no longer in production. This thing's like 3 or 4 years old now, so it's already getting a little outdated. Though it was pretty high powered when it came out. And I was like thinking like, gosh, this thing is so great. If they keep making it, I'll keep getting the new ones. But oh well. I'm just grateful that we have devices like this at all. Because gosh, I remember 10 years ago when we were all stoked about things like the mod book and when the iPad was first coming out, and we were like, oh my gosh, of course you're going to be able to draw on it and it's going to be incredible. And then they were like, why would you want to draw on one of these things? Why would you want to use a pen? There we go. Good start. Save. Hey, Connor. Good to see you. It is a mandrake eating cake. Turkey. In this animal comic universe, I had originally intended on like cake bars being like the metaphor for like cake is the metaphor for going out with buddies for drinks. Everybody goes out for cake. Both for the whimsy and because I wanted this to be, kid friendly. But then I got a second problem in that, okay, well, what do they drink? And I was like, okay, well, it's root beer. Of course it's root beer. But they'll drink it in these beer like mugs. Hope you've been okay, Connor. I've been meaning to reach out to you. I'm slowly piecing myself back together over this last couple months. Nothing serious has happened. Just it's been bananas, like it has been for everybody. Yeah, cake and root beer would be good about now, wouldn't it? I I have nothing but profound um, empathy for anybody who is in school right now. That has got to be impossible. Um, as bananas as this time has been for me, I work from home and I have for a long time. And while it's impacted my work as a teacher, that hasn't been that big of a change for me. And as a matter of fact, it's been almost like in some ways a little bit better because my class sizes have been really small. So it's been like pretty easy to keep relatively easy to create a rich experience. And I'm in the privileged place where I don't have to grade anybody. But for anybody who's like going to school and actually like, college, trying to like get a degree and learn in that environment. And when you're supposed to be doing like college is the age where you're supposed to make all sorts of really dumb mistakes. And it's harder to make those dumb mistakes if you can't be around people. And I don't say that disparagingly. I really mean it. It's like this is a time to like really bump into the walls and find out who you are by like getting jostled by life. And I feel like that's been stolen from anybody who's in school right now, and I really feel for you. I hope that those of you who are in college or school right now are finding other ways to make those silly mistakes that make you bump into the walls of the social fabric, help you understand a little bit more of who you are. There's still a lot of experimentation on campus, but it's experimentation with the threat of pod people around every corner. Oh, I've missed you, Connor. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think about that still or that last frame of the 70s Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland doing the face. I think about that a lot lately. Oops, wrong brush. Get the right brush, Jersey. I really like this chicken's design. I was trying to find. I worked with a lot of different designs to land on this chicken because I wanted him to look kind of like meat-headed and thuggish, but the kind of bully that immediately backs down when confronted. The kind of bully who's counting on you to not call him out, not challenge him. That's a lot of bullies, really. I wanted that to come across in his face, like just something about like the placement of the eyes, the proportion of the beak. Went through a lot of iterations before I landed on this. Troy, you've heard of college kids having stealth parties getting in trouble because of lockdown, so they're still making mistakes. Yes, there's that. I guess that's the new transgression, and maybe like a decade from now, we'll have stories told about how like this time, like how that was like this generation's kind of like, cheese it, it's the cops kind of thing. Let's not do that. Let's do this. Get some softer brush lines in here. There we go. Getting there. Save. So the plan is, I can switch to my big camera. Plan is that I'm going to print these pencils onto Canson watercolor paper, and then I'm going to ink them with brush pens, and then scan them into the computer, and then color them again. This is a method I recently developed. A method I developed, like I made this up. Lots of artists are doing this, but the idea came from, oh, why am I getting so washed out now? Goodness gracious. Last year when I did, I tried to put together a comics pitch in 30 days. Like it really made me think about economy in art. Like, how do I do this as quickly as possible? And so that was one of the ways that I made that compromise. I know that if I ink digitally, it's going to take me twice as long because I tend to zoom in like I'm doing right now and really fuss over the art. So it's like, okay, well, I know that if I print it out, I'm not going to do that because I can't, because my eyesight is not what it used to be. It's really hard for me to see up like this close to the paper. So it's going to force me just to focus on what's essential to in the visuals. And as you can see, I'm freehanding everything. That was something I did in that pitch. And when I showed it to people, nobody called me out on it. I'm like, okay, maybe if I rule it out tightly in the roughs, I can get it to where it's just enough that it's believable. And again, when I ink it, it's going to get even looser because of the fact that I can't see it all that well. Whoop, 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 whoop. I do like digital inking, Troy, but it's just that I can't be trusted. It's and I know some people will like set their zoom level on their computer. Like John David Guerra of Nightmare Pro Wrestling told me, he's like, well, I just like set my zoom to like, I won't let me zoom in past a certain point, and that keeps me from overworking the inks. Maybe that's something I could do, but I tried it and like I just got too frustrated with the art. So just like I really dig being able to zoom in this tight. And then with the like another reason I want to switch to paper inking is that I do miss that tactile feel of working with paper again. And I'll admit it, I will totally, I'm busted on this. I get a little bit envious when I see those artists post those pictures of like, hey, my book is done. It's a pile of their Bristol sitting on a table. Like, here's like 2 years worth of work. I'm like, oh, I'd love to have that physical artifact of my effort. There's parts of that too. Whoopsie doodle do. Get that out of there. Oh no, that's okay. That's the way I wanted it because that wall is flat behind them, and then this wall that's coming forward is just in their booth because they are in a booth in a cafe. How long have I been going? 15 minutes. Uh-oh. This is gonna take me more than a half hour. This might take me an hour. Rats. And save. Always save. Oh, I can see that, Troy. If you're working on like if you're not drawing directly on the monitor and you can like actually lean back and work, that would be an advantage actually of working. It's been a year since I've worked with one of those graphics tablets that, where you're drawing on the plastic surface and the drawing's happening on a monitor in front of you, but I could see that being a total advantage is that you could actually lean back to draw. Now, you know what? I'm not gonna. I almost thought about copying and pasting the art and just making the changes like I did in the roughs. I don't think it's going to save me that much time because the fussiness I'd have to do of all the erasing and correcting. This way, there'll be like just enough of a minor difference. Give it a little bit more of a sense of organic feel to it. I'm intentionally not looking at the drawing of the mandrill in the earlier panel. I want this to feel like it's another moment in time. Also, to just keep my speed going. There have been two, speaking of, you know, gas from carbonation in the chat. There have been two images that have always like kind of stayed with me as like sort of incomplete but emblematic images that made me like think about like the lifestyle of the cartoonist in a way that is like not totally realistic, but it was like romantic to my different time or ages, time periods of my life. I remember, and I actually just talked about this in a recent 4 million years later recording. I remember a bullpen bulletin with Jim Salicrup, and he was talking about like what it's like to work in comics. He said, "Well, you sit around and eat Frankenberry all day and draw." And I was like, "What?" You know, like that was like exactly what my 11-year-old brain needed to hear to me say like, "This is the life." Of course, it's not like that. He's joking around, but not totally dissimilar from that. Um, and then there was an interview with Dave Sim in a Wizard magazine back in the '90s. So now I'm in my 20s, right? And it was Dave Sim like looking out the window of his studio and like he's sitting at a desk and there's this big window. He's looking out and he's holding a beer and I'm like, oh my gosh, he gets to drink beer at work. Now I wasn't a big beer drinker when I was in my 20s, but the permission that suggested was very appealing to me. The freedom that suggested, right? The informality. It sounded like really romantic. Okay, let's go back to dry brush. The little mouse is a like sort of fantasy science fiction laborer, and so what suggests science fiction clothing better than quilted material? At least when we were growing up, that was the signal. Oh, your shoulder pads are quilted. You must be from the future. Okay. See you in a bit, Troy. Did I make the mandrel's cake? Nope. Mandrel has yellow cake with white icing. Now, in the original version of this page, the bully chicken here, you weren't able to see what he had on his plate. I had to readjust these pages quite a bit when I was redrawing them because the aspect ratio changed. So I switched from a traditional comic book page layout to a square layout. I am going to address what some of you have already noticed in that I have 2 stacked panels on the left and 1 tall panel on the right. And this is often debated about whether or not it's appropriate to do that, whether it's like a calamitous error in making comics. And I thought about this hard because I tend to agree that it's not a good idea. And I don't think that I am an iconoclast by doing this by any means, but I do think I found a solution to make this work. This was me like just desperately working with space, trying to figure out like how do I make this. I want the appearance of this bug coming in the door to be a big panel. It's a big moment, and I want it to be tall, not wide, because I don't want to have to do all of the. I want to focus on the bug, not on the people around the bug. Just the bug walking in, and I want the people in the cafe reacting to the entrance of the bug. So when I did the lettering, let me turn on the lettering on the other layers. We have, and I'll draw over top of all of this. I'm gonna make a new layer so we can follow the flow. So our reading direction starts here. Whoops, why are you? I want you to be black ink. Starts here, right? Moves down to here. We get to this tinkly tink, which is leading our eye down to this tail and to this. So hopefully the reading direction will be, right? But supposing it's not, let's suppose people go from here to here to here to here. That works too, because we have this moment where the bully chicken is telling his bad anecdote, and then we pass through the sound effect, the tinkly ting, to see the bell is rung as this character's walking through the door, and then we can go back to this and read that final balloon as the chicken is responding to the bug walking in the room. So I feel like it gets around the potential confusion because I've intentionally created ambiguity. It's meant to be read in multiple ways. Not trying to get all McCloudian about it or anything. I'm not trying to be fancy. Just again, like this is like the kind of desperation that comes out of designing a page. Oh, where it's like I this moment's important. I want it to be tall and wide or tall and big. Well, now I have to work everything else around it. Okay, how can I do that? So, anyway, actually, I would submit that probably most of my more creative decisions as a comic storyteller have come out of that pressure, not out of any kind of like, Olivia Newton-John on roller skates coming out of a painting on a wall and suddenly inspiring me, right? Oh, for crying out loud. Get that napkin in there that I had there before. Boom, 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 boom. And then our little reflection lines. Zoom out. Oh, rats. Background. Ooh, do I want to copy and paste? I want to copy and paste. Let's copy and paste. I am trying to be economical with this. Because this is a part-time thing. This is not my full-time job. This is something I'm doing in my off hours. I'm trying to be respectful of that. Whoa, whoa, get out of my way. There we go. Let's go in and finish those lines. Now, when I ink this, I'm going to ink those backgrounds individually. I'm not going to do any copying and pasting there. So, or who knows? Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. I'm not of the mind where this I'd consider that cheating. I don't. Efficiency is not cheating. A little bit boring when people start getting that riled up about what the rules are of art. It's like I think about this. Like this is another thing that doing that Transformers podcast has taught me is it's got me like connected and thinking a lot about how I thought as a child. And I remember something that was so important when I was in elementary school was fairness. They got more than I got. That's not fair. And sometimes I feel like that whole argument for I'm gonna merge this down. Merge layer below. There we go. Sometimes I feel like that argument of you can't cheat I find like it's cheating to find more efficiencies. It feels like it's coming from a similar place of like, that's not fair. It takes me way longer to do the work. How come you're finding a faster way to do it? I don't know. Maybe that's an unfair comparison, but all I know is that I find it like a little bit just yawn inducing when somebody gets too worked up about that kind of thing. And maybe another reason I get so a little bit impatient of it is that I just feel like it's something that a lot of beginning artists talk about. Once you start doing this for money, like doing it fast becomes so darn important. I would argue that it's important even if you're not doing it for money, if you're doing it for pleasure, because it's like taking time out of your day to do this stuff. And while it's fun to get lost in it, if the idea is to make something finished, it's like, well, how quickly can we get that done? I do this so I don't accidentally create a tangent there. Yes, Troy, you spotted it correctly. This is a friendly game, the mini comic I did a couple years ago, and I'm redrawing it. And I'm intentionally redrawing it square so that it matches the format of the Mining for Trouble book, which I did as a square format comic, right? And a friendly game was always meant to take place right after this story. Like the osmiridium that Fleet gets at the end as a reward for helping the lizard people is what she produces to try to pay for cake in Maggie's cake bar. And, only to find out that they don't take cake, or really they don't take osmiridium, they only accept monies. So anyway, but what this has meant is that, like, so if I go to a friendly game, go to inks, and go to page 5, we can see the original page 5 looks way different in that there's 5 panels on the page. So the page count's going to change because I'm realizing that I cannot fit that layout into a square format without really smushing the art. So, this is actually page 6, but it's the top of page 5 of the original script. So, yeah, this is just so I can make a new full color edition of this story. And I'll be honest, it's also to buy me some time to figure out what I want to do for my next personal project, because whatever I do next is going to require some outlining and writing, and it's going to take a lot of prep. And so while I'm working on that, I wanted to be able to draw something. And so I thought, well, hey, this was something that I had always meant to, ever since I did it as the Inktober challenge, I had meant to do it in full color, like fully, like take the initial version and turn it into some kind of printable version beyond a mini comic, right? Like a full color edition. And also, as you know, Troy, I mean, you probably heard me talk about this before. This story is very special to me, because I mean, this is like one that comes from a very personal story from my childhood. In that it's about bullying, and it's about bullying that I witnessed as a child that I didn't do anything about. Or let me say, I'm not happy with what I did. I tried, but if I could go back, I would do a better job of responding to the bullying that I witnessed. And so this story is both a way of me, like, sort of exploring that, like, what would I have done differently? What would I have done better? And also, hopefully, it's a way to, like, if God willing, children read this, it'll help them navigate bullying when they see it. Thanks for that, Troy. Yeah, I mean, I'm noticing that. So I'll open up a previous page that I busted into two. Um, Doing it this way is making the layouts a lot more um, open and breathable. It's not as dense, right? So this is the top of page 4 of the original book that I had to cut in half. And in doing so, let me open up the original page 4. We can see that that first top half of the page, like it, I didn't add that much more room, but I added enough. So like, and then we look at the bottom of page 4, this 3-panel sequence where Fleet produces the osmiridium and Maggie informs her that that's not acceptable currency. That got a whole new look when I did it as, a friendly game, digital pencils, page 5. So there's the original, and that's how it changed. So yeah, it's opening things up a lot and giving it a lot more room to breathe. It's letting me play, like get some more information in there that wasn't there before. Like if you look at the original bottom of page 4, when Fleet's slamming the osmiridium on the table, the background's just like this abstracted like shadow. It's like, okay, well now I can get in there. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Like on the new page 4, Boulder looks like he's actually sitting down instead of trying to like squeeze into the panel. So, um, yeah, it's shaping up a lot better. I'm a lot happier with this new final version. Um, I have a habit, and you may know this better than a lot of people, Troy, because as somebody who's followed my work, is I have a habit of trying to like cram a lot into a page. I really like, the more classic 70s and 80s style of superhero comic storytelling where you just get so much out of so little. Like you really maximize that space. And that I know isn't a style that's really appreciated or celebrated right now. Um, it hasn't been for some time. And like part of me is like wants to be all iconoclastic about it, but like, oh, show them how it really works. Um, and has been like resistant to doing more open and breathing layouts. So this feels like it's like just the right kind of compromise because it's like taking something that was a little bit dense and just opening up a little bit. So, oops, that was the wrong tool. Yeah, I mean, the comparison to, yeah, like people who like Bendis, who is a great writer. I mean, I loved his Caliber comics, like AKA Goldfish, Project Fire. But yes, he was like sort of like one of the vanguards and poster children of this period of superhero comics where they did the decompressed storytelling, and that was really celebrated in like the early aughts, wasn't it? Um, and that's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm glad that they make comics for every taste, but that ain't my taste. I like things that are bouncy and joyful and frenetic. And I will admit to like I was being a little bit of a prig in the early aughts, well, heading into the late, like pre 2010, when I would get like really huffy about people saying like, I want to make comics to feel like a movie. I'm like, why don't you make comics to feel like a comic? I know I got a little bit wound tightly about that. They can make it however they want to. I'm going to make comics to try to feel like a comic. And the problem is that it's too decompressed to make trade collection length, even if the story doesn't need that much space. The reverse is bad too. There's no time for the story to organically be told. Sure, yeah, it can go wrong either way, right? Like if you're doing something that feels like, well, I think a good example is my when I finally got to see, this is to use a cartoon example, the Max Steel's RoboForce animated special that aired in the mid '80s, and it felt like, wow, this feels like really Sunbow-esque kind of storytelling, but they were trying to do what G.I. Joe would have done in a 3 or 4 part miniseries, or 5 part miniseries, that is, in one part. So it feels really rushed and really truncated. You don't really get to experience the characters the way you do in like some of those Sunbow miniseries. So that's where you can like take that compression too far and really make it not fun. Do this. Transparent ink. I love this feature. And likewise, I've had issues with stories that just like they feel like they're really dragging on and asking me to hold my breath for too long. I think that's a taste thing, though. Um, because I mean, a lot of the ones that I can think of that I won't name, that really made me go like, all right, I'm out. You're asking too much of me to stick around for this. Like they were very celebrated comics, so it's like, okay, well, there's something that my taste is not matching up with a lot of other people who buy comics. And the important thing is that people are buying and reading comics, not whether or not their tastes match my tastes. But yeah, I think about that a lot. Is like you want to create something that makes people. Well, I mean, this is like in like video game design too, right? Is like you don't want to make it too hard or too easy. And if you make it so that the reader or the viewer is, like actually it's like the character who showed up at the end of the Solo movie that I won't say because just in case somebody hasn't seen it and plans to. But like this character shows up and like I'm in the theater with my wife and we're like, isn't that character dead? I thought that character died. And then I asked a friend, they're like, oh well, you had to read the books and watch this cartoon series that went along with the Star Wars world. And I was like, I'm out. You've already made me work too much. Like I can't be a casual fan and do that too. But I'm sure it was amazingly thrilling for the people who really followed things carefully, just like it was for us when Beast Wars came out, when they were like, this is the arc, right? And like if you're a casual Transformers fan and like haven't watched the cartoon or read the comics in ages, you're like, huh? What? What's that? Although Black Arachnia did bring Silverbolt up to date on what that was, but yeah, there was like a little bit of that kind of like Easter egging going on. So I get it. Geez, Pat, you are surprisingly detailed. Yeah, that's just it. It's like you could easily frame it up as like, oh, you have to do homework in order to enjoy this thing fully. I don't. That might be strong language for me because like it didn't make me dislike the movie. I liked the movie just fine. I mean, it had Chewbacca in it for crying out loud, but it took me out of the movie and made me turn to my wife and have the two of us argue like an old couple, like, what was that? I don't understand. Why did they happen? Why are they doing that thing? I don't get it. Who's they may be giants? Okay. Almost done with Pat. What am I doing with Pat? Oh, we just gotta do a couple little toes down here and the stink lines. Yeah, see, I didn't know that the Clone Wars character was in Rogue One. Oh, was it Bail Organa? I don't remember. But see, that just I'm too casual a fan to even pick up on that kind of stuff. And I don't say that to be aloof and cool. Because Troy, you know better than most what a nerd I am about other things. Bow weep, grana, weep, ninny bong. Oh, the character that Forrest Whitaker plays. See, I didn't even know. That's a Clone Wars character. Oh, you mean from the Clone Wars cartoon, not from the second movie where Padme says, "I love you deeply and truly." I think I remember hearing from somebody that he was a character from something else, but like again, it's one of those things where I like the franchise and everything. I like, I'm watching The Mandalorian right now and it's great. Um, but I just don't I'm I don't have the space right now to do the kind of investment that other people have done in this. Like, and again, I get it. Like, I was a total Tolkien nut when I was in my early 20s. Read the Silmarillion multiple times. Um, read the Lord of the Rings trilogy multiple times. Listened to the audiobooks multiple times. Really, like when the movies came out, I drove my poor, long-suffering wife out the room with all my like, oh, that's a reference to this part. That's a reference to that part. Why didn't they put Tom Bombadil in it anyway? I totally get that. So I'm not slagging anybody for that. But it's like I don't have the interest or time to get that deep into Star Wars. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Let's get this finished. Then I'm going to take my paint bucket tool, drop. Oh, dirty birdie. Let's get that closed and drop in paint bucket. Then go here and turn the opacity down. And then I'm going to go here, get transparent ink, and I'm going to trace out these lines in transparent ink. Only because when I ink this, I know it's going to be a real drag doing this part. I'm going to try to make this part easy. Just give me the clues of where to put those lines. Oops. All right. And then turn the opacity back up. Back to my regular ink. I am almost done. How are we doing on time? 52 minutes. I suspected it would take an hour to do this. Oops. Every once in a while, and I've never understood why it does this. I haven't. I really need it. I should take the time to figure it out. With my Vio Z canvas, if I press the wrong way with the pen, it interprets that I want to use the eyedropper tool. Okay, let's make sure I got the right magic wand tool here. Refer other layers. No, refer selected layer. No, refer other layers, and I'm going to hide my roughs layer, and then I'm going to tap here, to make sure I got the selection. Quick mask, just to make sure. Okay. Yep, we got the area I want. And grab my brush, grab the dry brush tool, and turn my roughs back on. There we go. Now this is a time when I would be, when I get to doing the inks on this, the physical inks, I'm going to be bummed that I didn't do this digitally. And I might just leave this blank and just like do this part. The ding dong applesauce. All right. There we go. Because like doing this kind of thing with the magic wand tool to like map out an area and say like only let me work there is, oh, it's so wonderful. Okay, hide that. Grab that now. And turn the roughs back on. This. Being able to do this and not have to worry about where my getting too close to the edges or anything like that is pretty awesome. And Brendan's dry brushes are natural enough looking that I feel like I probably could do this digitally when I go to final. We'll see how I feel about it when I get here. And let's put a little bit of there. And some on Pat's clothes. Because Pat is supposed to look kind of filthy. There we go. I think it's done. Let's turn off our roughs. Turn on my lettering. And crying out loud, hit save. Ah, Saw Gerrera is the name of that character. Thank you, Troy. That's right. I remember that now. So there we go. Page 6 of the new version of A Friendly Game is penciled. And the goal is that I'm going to, once I've got a good buffer of pencils, I'm going to live stream the inks because it's easier for me to talk while I'm inking than it is when I'm penciling. So, and then I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can set a regular schedule where it's like, okay, just like they tell you to have a regular posting schedule or streaming schedule for the live streams, so people know to show up. But that's why I want to have a buffer, because I don't want to fall behind and like have, it's like, oh, no stream this week because I got to get another page penciled. Although I could stream the pencil, it just did. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out with me. You know the drill. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and all that jazz. jdrozd.com. Right above me on the screen, there's my Instagram and my Patreon. So thanks once again. I'll see you all next time. Okay, bye.